everybody, Claudia Boleyn here, and today's video is all about growing up bisexual. So I wanted to make a video about this because I don't think there are enough videos about this online. There's a lot of videos about growing up gay or growing up lesbian, but you know, I really haven't seen that many talking about the bisexual experience, like from when you're a young kid. I find that a lot of the time, people don't want to acknowledge that LGBT people exist like before they hit adulthood or adolescence. And it is rooted in homophobia, really, the reason that we don't think about kids being LGBT. It's because we think that, well, society kind of like pushes on us this idea that like same gender relationships or LGBT relationships are somehow impure and very like sexually driven. And you see this a lot, you will see this all the time, and it really irritates me. And it's like a lot of people can't get it into their heads that being LGBT, you have relationships just like straight people, all different sorts of relationships. I can tell you, being a bisexual person, that I had my first crush on a woman when I was probably about 5 or 6 years old. And I'm not talking sexual, I'm not like a sexual crush, but like, you know, the crushes that kids get where you think, oh wow, you're so beautiful and I want to marry you, that sort of crush. And this is an experience I don't see talked about very often. I don't see many LGBT people, especially not bisexual people, being able to talk about what it was like when they were young, because again, like, people want to see it as this weird sexual thing. I really hate that. It's like that idea that you can't be anything other than straight unless you've actually tested it out, like by having sex with people of other genders. That's obviously rubbish, because straight people have this, not all straight people, I should say, before I get hate mail in the comment section. But yeah, like, straight people do have this weird idea that like all children are straight unless they come out, and then suddenly they come out when they're like an appropriately old age, like, I don't know, a teenager, but not too much of a young teenager, because then they don't believe you, they think it's a phase. So maybe like early adulthood, and you have to come out to the family, then magically suddenly you are a different sexuality, you're not straight anymore. Again, I'm calling bullshit on that, because as soon as I was old enough to have crushes at whatever level, I was having crushes on women as well as men. Right, so the actual experience of being a young bisexual person, I suppose I should say young bisexual woman, because that's the experience I've had, a young cis bisexual woman, because everyone's experience is going to be different. But like, for me, my first crush on a woman was when I was like 5 or 6 years old, and it was on I think she was like a teaching assistant or helper at my playgroup or something, and I just like, I loved her. Like, it wasn't like, again, I was a child, it wasn't like a sexual love, it was like a, wow, you're so beautiful, I'm kind of fixated on you, I want to follow you around everywhere, I think you're just so wonderful. And it's not until you're older you think like, oh, okay, that was like an early crush. There would be certain teachers at school that I would absolutely like fixate on, and I thought they were absolutely wonderful, and I just wanted to be around them all the time, and I laughed at everything they said, and I thought they were perfect. And it was like baby Claudia's first crushes, only I didn't realise they were crushes until I was older. It's actually really sad, because I was feeling the exact same feelings for certain like guys, male teachers maybe, or like male figures, that sort of thing. But I would only it was the exact same feeling, but I would only recognise the male ones as an actual crush, and my brain wouldn't even compute at that little baby age that it was the same feeling I had for the ladies too. So when I was younger, like in infant school and junior school, I didn't even realise that being interested in your own gender was a thing. And I think that's bad. I do think that's bad. I think that in school, I'm not saying that like kids should have like an in-depth sex education and like sexuality 101 in like infant school or junior school, but I do think it's important that the teachers like mention when they're talking about fairy stories and the prince and the princess, like they just have to say something like, but sometimes a princess will fall in love with another princess, and that's totally fine. That would have really helped me, because early on I would have thought, oh okay, that's what it is, oh that's great. It would have helped me understand myself a lot more, and it also would have helped me with a lot of internalised homophobia / biphobia and self-hatred which I developed later on. So skip way forwards to when I was a young teenager, and I think being like a young teenager, maybe about 12, 13 or something, I think that's usually when most people start to like think about, like, I don't know, like sexual awakening, that kind of thing, and you get your first hardcore crushes, like proper crushes. Now the thing is, when you're bisexual, it's incredibly weird, because you will have these hardcore crushes on quite a few people. So I had these hardcore crushes on men and women celebrities, But I was only identifying, again, the male celebrities as real crushes. And it messed my head up because I didn't quite know what to do with these intense feelings I was having towards these certain female celebrities. And it is really a confusing feeling, which I'm hoping that other bisexual women will be able to share with me. But it's this weird feeling because you sort of fixate on the person. So for me, I won't mention the actual celebrities themselves, but, you know, it would start out where I'd like to keep them on my radar. So whenever I had internet time, because back in the day, like, I was only allowed half an hour. We didn't have broadband. We had to pay as we went. So I would maybe look them up on Google Images. And I would look at them for a while and I wasn't sure what I was feeling. I was just thinking, I like to look at you on Google Images. I like to see you in magazines. And then I'd think it was a sort of, oh, I get it. I want to be like them. That's it. I want to follow their fashion and look like they do. And in some cases, it was that as well as a crush. But in some cases, it wasn't. So that was confusing as well, because I was just compelled to look at them and compelled to see them in images and to watch them in interviews on YouTube, that kind of thing. And sometimes it would go to quite a dark place because there would be a lot of internalised homophobia and biphobia and stuff. And this is before I'd recognised any of those feelings. And I think maybe somewhere subconsciously in me, my body was telling me, like, my mind and my body were saying, okay, this has gone too far, this is bad, this is a bad thing. And so it would backfire, and sometimes I would completely unreasonably develop this sort of, like, I would take an intense dislike to a certain female celebrity. And that sounds really awful, but that's kind of, I think, the way it went with me subconsciously. I think I was subconsciously afraid of the feeling, and so I took, like, a sort of dislike to the woman. So I would, like, be like, oh no, I don't like them, and I'd be, you know what it's like when you're a young teenager as well, and you watch a lot of TV where girls sort of fight and have cat fights and stuff. Like, they don't really encourage sisterhood very much when you're a young teenager, or they didn't when I was younger. And so I used to be like, oh, they're rubbish, and I'd think of all these reasons to bring them down, and I'd develop this sort of weird fixated hatred on them. So that happened with a lot of my early crushes before, again, this is before I realised the way I was feeling. So this is what my subconscious brain did to me. It made me into a very judgmental and yet also obsessively fixated sort of person, which was very, very confusing to me. Okay, so then skip forward again to when the bisexual realisation is happening, and it was such a relief, like, when I realised, and it was a gradual thing. I'm not going to tell you about my realisation process. But the crushes suddenly changed, and it was wonderful. I felt like I was freed from these chains. The weight had just fallen off my shoulders. I was able to look at these women that I'd been sort of feeling negatively towards and suddenly slap myself in the head and be like, Claudia, you don't hate them. You love them. That's the problem. You think they're wonderful. You want to be with them. You want them to be your girlfriend. You have a massive, great big crush. That realisation was wonderful, and I think it was at that point that I kind of stopped hating in that weird way on those certain female celebrities. And it just made my life so much better. Now skip forwards to now, to present day Claudia. Hello, I'm right here. It's still very confusing to me, even as someone who's been out as bisexual for a number of years and is very comfortable in my sexuality now. Like, I know what I am and I'm proud of it and I'm fine with it. But it's still very, very confusing. I think because of the messages we get in society about women and being attracted to women and women having friendships and all that kind of stuff. And it is a very hostile place for women. I won't talk about, like, feminism stuff in this video particularly, but it is a very hostile place for women. But I get this particular dilemma all the time, and it's when I feel a sort of crush thing coming on. And it's like I'm very confused, because I develop a sort of liking and fixation on a certain, like, celebrity woman or my crush. You know, as people do. But I'm never quite sure, it takes me a long time to determine whether I want to be like them, whether they're a hero character, whether they're my heroine, whether I think, you're the woman I want to be like, or if I think, no, it's not that I don't want to be like you, I like you, like, I have a crush on you and I would like to be your girlfriend. I still find that a really difficult thing to understand sometimes, so it can take me a while to understand my crushes on women. It is so much easier to have crushes on men, and now I will talk a little bit about society and get a little bit angry. Because since I was a little girl, like, I would show any interest in any sort of boy, like friendship or whatever, or just admiration, people around you, like, they want to, like, they get all, like, heteronormative, and, like, you're, like, 3 years old or something, and they're like, oh, look at them, they're sweethearts, look at them, they're going to get married, isn't it cute? It's like straight people, not all straight people again, but they want to force heterosexuality onto you, like, before any sexuality or any sort of attraction has even started within yourself. It's like you're conditioned from a really young age. Like, if you're a young girl, if you're a little girl, then you want your Prince Charming, and all the media will tell you want your Prince Charming, and your family will go along with this too and ask you, do you have a boyfriend? Like, are there any boys you fancy? And it's like, I'm 4 years old, I don't think so. And it just goes on and on and on. And I don't even think it's like a conscious homophobic thing that happens. It's just that the society is so heteronormative that we don't give kids other options. It would be so easy. Like, all you have to do, I think, when bringing up kids, and if I'm ever a parent, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make sure my kid knows that there's lots of different ways to be in love, and you can be in love with different genders, lots of different genders, and it doesn't matter, and it's all just lovely. I don't mind at all that in most kids' books the relationships are straight and it's a prince and a princess, because the majority of people are straight. But I think there should be some books that are about, like, same-gender relationships and LGBT relationships. And again, if it's for kids, I'm not saying it has to go into great depths. If you can write a kid's story about a prince and a princess and it can be innocent and lovely, then you can exchange the princess for a prince, you know? People always assume when you ask for LGBT education for kids, or media with LGBT people in it for little children, they assume you suddenly want to put, like, the character's sex life into it, and that's actually not it at all. And that's actually really offensive, again, like what I talked about at the start of the video. It's when straight people assume that LGBT relationships are inherently, like, really sexual, and that's the main thing about them. Now, another thing about growing up as bisexual, in my experience, is that for a lot of my life, I identified as straight. And that was because, right, to start with, you think straight is the only sexuality, so you obviously when you're younger you think you're straight. Even gay people probably think they're straight for a while. Well, some of them do. Now, if you're lucky, as you get a little bit older, you will be educated slightly, and still not very well in this society, but you will get educated that gay people exist. So there are people that are attracted exclusively to their own gender. Now, that's all well and good, but when you're bisexual, this is very confusing, because you don't even consider bisexuality as a thing. If nobody introduces you to the fact that you can be attracted to more than one gender, then how on earth are you supposed to know about that? I used to have these massive crushes on women, which should have made it screamingly obvious that I wasn't straight. But because I was attracted to men as well, I just assumed I was straight. I literally hadn't heard of people being attracted to more than one gender. I didn't know it was a thing that even existed. I can't tell you how much easier my life would have been if from a young age someone had just said that some people out there like more than one gender, and that's okay. Like, that would have solved so many years of problems for me. So instead of identifying as bisexual when I was a young teenager, I was like a self-identified straight person. I was a straight person, but I was really into gay rights. I was super into the gay rights, and I couldn't explain why. And I know this is an experience which loads of bisexual people share, and we've had a real laugh about this online before in the community. But, like, loads and loads of people who are LGBT, before they properly come to terms with it or realise, they start out as these really, really invested straight allies. I mean, I was so invested. I was such a dedicated straight ally. And, like, it just, everything fell into place when I realised I was bi, because I thought, look, you were overly invested in that. It's really funny now I come to think of it, because I should have known. I was a teenager that was, like, obsessively into LGBT media, or gay media as I thought of it at the time. So I'd be, like, watching everything I could with gay people in it, and I'd be, like, getting into arguments with people over gay rights when we were in, like, religious studies lessons and when we were at school. I'd be really invested in it. Then I got really super into shipping. And I don't mean, like, the sense of, oh, these gays are hot together, but, like, I was living through the shipping. Like, I was thinking, like, yeah, these people should get together. I can really relate to this. But in my head, I wasn't thinking, maybe you can relate because you are also attracted to your own gender. That didn't even cross my mind, and it should have. Oh my gosh, I just hope that in the future that young bisexual kids and adolescents, like, they know that bisexuality is a thing, because it will save them years of heartache and years of questioning themselves, and it will save a lot of bisexual young women, I think, a lot of women hate. If I had been able to understand the way I was feeling, and if society had backed it up that it was an okay thing to feel, like, I would have, like, instead of being all, like, mean and like, oh, look at that girl there, oh, she's awful, let's think of a million ways to pick her apart, I would have been able to say, okay, right, well, I fancy that girl a lot, and I wish I could ask her out because I love her. And I will not go into the crushes I had on classmates throughout the years when I was growing up, and there were plenty with me, I can tell you, there were quite a few. But they make so much more sense now, like the intense friendship that I would develop with certain people, and like the intense, like, I don't know, like, with certain people, like, I should have known, and if I had known more about LGBT stuff when I was younger, I would have been able to spot straight out that I had a crush on these girls. But I didn't, because of society, and instead we had these I had these weird, like, attachments and stuff. It's very, very strange, and society needs to stop with this stuff. Okay, so I hope this was, again, hashtag relatable for some bisexual people out there. I apologise if the video is changing light constantly. I'm just sitting in my bedroom and the light's streaming in and it's getting darker and lighter, so this video is going to be held to colour. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed making this video a lot. Tell me your experiences as a bisexual person in the comments section, because I love to hear them, and I love having a laugh about this kind of thing now looking back. Also, I should say that obviously being bisexual means being attracted to more than one gender, and although in the video I've spoken about being attracted to men and women, that's just my personal experience as a teenager and as a child being attracted to men and women. There weren't people of other genders that I was attracted to when I was younger, but there are people of other genders out there, and bisexual people can be attracted to more than one gender. Basically, that's the definition of bisexuality. So my experience growing up is not like the experience. Everyone has a different one. Okay, I love you loads, and I'll see you really soon. Bye bye!